Hi there, Nathalie with you today with a new process video for Pinkfresh Studio. And today I'm very excited because this is my first layout using the new Keeping It Real collection to create my layout. And this collection is gorgeous, very springy, vibrant colors, beautiful embellishments, and of course there's florals. So my idea, and probably because lately I've been fascinated with frames, and I really love frames. I'm actually going to use one of the new dies, and I really wanted it when I saw it on the release, and this is the Essentials Stitch Scallop rectangle die set. I'm going to use the smaller one to cut, I'm going to say, kind of little frames out of some of the papers, and that's going to create my background. So you're going to see that I've pulled out two pictures, and if you have kids, and I have, my kids are already teenagers, but then my niece and nephew, they're really close to them, but there's a huge age gap between them, and to take one picture I have to take 20, and it's really fun to go through the reel of pictures to get that one picture. It's just so hilarious. So I'm going to take some of those to document this. So my idea is I want to create a whole bunch of little frames on the background, and for that I'm going to use the small die set from the Stitch Scallop rectangle, to cut them. And I'm gonna cut them from some of the papers from the collection. I want to have kind of a representation of the colors of the collection. So I'm starting with this yellow one. This is the B side of the Daily Grind paper, and I'm gonna cut two of them. And I really love the A side. I'm not gonna throw the leftover pieces because I'm actually gonna see at the end I'm gonna fussy cut some of the elements. So once I cut that, I am also gonna cut there's a light blue paper, it's called A Little Chaos. It's the one with the big circles at the front. The B side has this beautiful blue shade of paper, and then I'm gonna cut out of the rainbow paper. The name of this paper is Big Mood, but I want to cut frames so that I pick up those tones of teal. I want to pick up some of that pink, because that's gonna just kind of represent all the colors that are in this collection. So I'm gonna take my time, and I'm just gonna go ahead and cut the frames. I'm actually gonna cut two of the pink area of the paper and just one of the teal, and so I'm gonna take it off camera and just work on that, and then I'm gonna come back and show you pretty much how my idea is before we start continue working, because I'm gonna add a little bit of mixed media. So I need to build the background before not build the background, but have kind of an idea where everything is gonna sit before I can continue on. So you're gonna see that I've cut all my frames. Like I said, two of the pinkish area, two of the light blue, two yellow, and one of the teal part of the rainbow. So I'm just gonna set this aside for a little bit. I am using heavy white cardstock for my background because I'm gonna add mixed media. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I am actually gonna use the light blue frame to frame the good picture of the four kids, and then I'm gonna use that pinkish tone of the frame to actually make the funny picture of the real picture, you know, stand out. And then I'm just gonna use the frames just so that they give the impression that the frames are coming into the page from the right hand side of the layout. And then I'm gonna repeat the same idea at the bottom left corner of the layout, so like the frames look like they're coming from the bottom, from the left edge of the layout. So I'm just gonna set them in place with the way it's more or less gonna look like. I just want to have an idea of how everything is gonna sit, and then I'm gonna take a pencil and really lightly mark where everything is gonna go, so I have an idea where I can add or how far I can go with my mixed media. So I'm using, like I said, heavy cardstock for my background, but I'm gonna prep it because I'm actually gonna add quite a bit of water. So for this I am using gesso. I'm applying it using my silicone brush, and that's just like a large palette knife. So I'm gonna give me kind of a smooth application, and that's why I drew the lines. Remember that the frames are formed on the background, just so I know how far I can pull the yeso. I don't want to cover the entire page with yeso. If you want to, go ahead. I just want to add the yeso to the area where I know the mixed media is gonna sit. And my mixed media is I want really soft mixed media. I just want a little pop of color on the background. So once I add my yeso, I'm gonna make sure that it dries completely on its own before I start working on the color application. And to bring color onto this page, I'm actually gonna use with the with the liquid watercolor. I'm gonna use the sky blue and aquamarine just because I want to bring those tones onto the layout. So I'm starting with, I'm gonna say around 3 drops of sky blue and a half a drop of aquamarine. I'm gonna mix them in a little piece of acrylic. I'm gonna add water. I want it to be really runny because I want to make sure that when I apply it onto my background, the color is gonna run and create a very organic looking background. So you're gonna see that once I have it ready, I'm gonna help smoosh it or move it, the ink with the acrylic. It's still not enough water, it's not moving as much. You're gonna see that I'm gonna actually apply more water. So this is one of the reasons why I had to prep the paper, and by that I mean I had to add yeso, just because I know that I want the water, like I want the paper to be able to withstand the mixed media without warping, and that needs some prepping. So you're gonna see that I'm just gonna continue adding some of the pigment and some water until I get that consistency of the liquid just running on the page. So I'm just gonna continue adding some of the pigment, add some water, and then I'm gonna help the movement of the pigment, in this case with my brush. That's pretty much all I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna continue working with it. I'm gonna help it to move the pigment, using my piece of acrylic. This is a very simple way to add watercolor. It might look messy, it's not gonna look glorious, but it has to look messy before it looks really nice. That's just one of the paradoxes of mixed media. Sometimes beauty is in the mess. So all I'm doing right now is just, like I said, I'm just adding some of the pigment onto the paper. I'm adding some water, and then just gonna help the pigment to move around the area by just tilting the paper and using my brush just to help it spread it, or the plastic. Now again, I'm just gonna tell you, if you wanna replicate this, make sure you prep your page, or you can use watercolor paper, either way. And do not use just plain cardstock. This is quite a bit of water, and if you don't prep your page properly, you're gonna warp the paper. The beauty of having yeso on the background is just it gives you time. It just kind of toughens the paper, and it gives you time for the water to move around. If you don't prep the page, the moment you add water, the fibers of the paper are gonna soak up the water. You're not gonna have that nice kind of movement, like organic looking watercolor. You're gonna have more of a stain of color on the background, and your paper is gonna warp really drastically. So just some ideas, some hints on what can happen. So just going back to the layout, at the bottom left corner of my layout, I'm gonna add a little bit extra aquamarine. I want to go more into that teal color, so I'm gonna follow the same idea of just adding some color, some water, and then just putting it on top of the yeso application and letting the watercolor pretty much do its work on its own. You're gonna see that I'm just gonna add some splatters, and then once I'm happy what it looks like, I'm gonna set it aside to dry completely. I'm not gonna heat it with my heater or anything. I'm gonna let it dry on its own. It might take a while, but you can put some heavy books on top of it if you feel that it's not gonna go flat, and that's one of the reasons why I'm using heavy cardstock, so I know it's gonna, in a way, pretty much go back to the same state as before. There is gonna be a little bit of warping just because I'm using quite a bit of water. So while my background is drying, I'm gonna start working on the frames for my picture, for my layout. So like I said, I am gonna frame the good picture, the one that the kids are actually happy and smiling, with one of the light blue frames, and I'm gonna add some foam adhesive behind it because I want to make sure that it stands out, it pops from the page. Now what I'm gonna do for the other picture that is gonna sit on top of this one is I want to give it height. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little piece of chipboard to the back of the picture. That just gives it some height, and then I'm going to add a little pieces of foam adhesive. That's just going to make it stand out above or the picture that I just had framed. So I'm just kind of setting the idea in place. I'm gonna use the pink kind of frame, kind of the background. I don't want to frame the picture, but I do want to make sure that it sits kind of inside the pink frame. So once I am ready to, my background is dried and I'm ready to start assembling, I'm gonna start by first setting the frame picture in place, and after that I'm just gonna build my layout from there. So you're gonna see that I've set my picture in place. I'm gonna go ahead and put it together, like, you know, glue it onto the page, secure it. After that I'm just gonna start playing with the other frames, and the way I want to go about it is I want to kind of hide it underneath. I want to, what was the word you would say, I want to, it just kind of mix the frames. I want to make sure that ones are overlapping others in different areas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay them flat, and once I know where they're going to sit, I'm just going to add a little bit of foam adhesive to the corners of the frames, and that's just going to create a movement at some dimension. I'm just going to cheat the dimension. I don't want to add, like, you know, foam adhesive throughout the entire frame, just because it is going to make it really uneven. First of all, because in some areas if I add that one, then you're going to have different heights of foam adhesive. So instead I'm going to cheat it, and by that I mean is I'm just going to lay them flat, and then I'm just going to add the foam adhesive to the areas that are outside the overlap. That's the best way to describe it. Whatever is left over, and like I said, I'm going to make sure that I put my frames so that they look like they're coming into the page on each side of the layout. Whatever is outside of the perimeter of the page, I'm just gonna use my pair of scissors and trim that off. So I'm just gonna continue building. You're gonna see that it's quite heavy at the top, just where I have the pictures. I'm gonna add more frames there, but I'm gonna make sure to balance this out later on. So all I'm doing right now is just continue working on setting the frames. That's pretty much the backbone of my layout. Pretty simple layout. It's just a matter of playing with the positioning and the colors, giving it some movement, creating that dimension with a little bit of foam adhesive. And once I have that in place, I'm just ready to start embellishing. And one of the first things I'm going to start for this layout, I usually leave it to the end, but in this case I'm going to start with the title of my page. The title of my page is going to go right on the center of the paper, in between. If you're going to see the frames, they form a soft diagonal, so I'm going to set it right on the center of the layout. And I went into the puffy word stickers. I mean, those are just great. That you couldn't get any real, like for real, perfectly imperfect, real life. These are just sentiments that you're gonna use over and over again. So the title that I'm gonna create, I'm gonna mix the alphas. There's a nice shade, like a nice teal shade. I'm gonna spell the word real life, and then I'm gonna use the snapshot, that kind of scripty puffy word at the bottom. So my title is gonna read real life snapshot, because truly, like I said before, whenever I take a picture of my kids and the littles, which is my niece and nephew, I usually take around 20 of them to have one good one. And I love going back and seeing like the progression of how it starts to get to the good picture, or if I get the good picture, how they end up, because it's hilarious. They either making faces, they're not happy, and I love it. So I put a few of them for this layout. After that, like I said before, the top right corner of my layout is heavy, just because I have the extra frames, I have the pictures. So to balance, I'm gonna bring that big ephemera piece with the florals, and that's just gonna balance the layout a bit. I'm gonna add a few more stickers at the bottom. I'm just gonna bulk that area so that it balances each other out. Now to embellish the frames, I'm gonna keep it fairly simple. I don't want to hide a lot of the frames. I am gonna add a few stickers. I'm using the cardstock stickers. I'm gonna add some florals just because I added a large floral on the bottom of cluster. I need to add a few small ones to the top. I am gonna use quite a bit of the cardstock stickers. The sentiments and the phrase stickers are amazing, like reality checks. So I think it says one that says big fail. Like, I mean, trust me, they will be used. You're gonna love it. So after that, I'm just adding a few more stickers. You're gonna see that I am actually gonna add just the small accents. I don't want to go big with my ephemera or my embellishments. I want to keep it fairly simple. I do not want to cover the frames. Once I have that, I'm gonna add my lines of journal right underneath the title, and you're not gonna see that in the camera. I actually did it outside of the camera. But one of the things that I'm gonna do is in the leftover pieces, the pieces left over, sorry, from the die cuts, the B sides actually have nice, sorry, the A sides, because the parts that I cut are pretty much the B sides of the papers. So I'm gonna start cutting some of the A side. I cut some florals from one of the papers, and then in the daily grind paper, which is the one that has the A side, has quite a few icons. There's some butterflies, and they're tiny, so I'm gonna fussy cut around 4 of them, and those I'm just gonna add as little accents throughout the page. I'm gonna add them to the title. I'm gonna add one going into the phrase stickers on the bottom cluster, and then I just add a tiny little one right at the top of the layout. And then just to finish the page, I'm gonna add enamel dots just to tie all the colors together, just to give it a pop of color. And remember how I said the mixed media kind of looks scary, but a lot of it is covered. It just brings a little accent. It's just a pop of color on the background, and that's pretty much it. I love how this turned out. I love the colors. I love how vibrant it looks. You're gonna see the close-ups coming up, and it was really fun to put together. It took some time just because I wanted to make sure the mixed media was completely dry, but it's a fairly simple layout, and trust me, there was many other ideas while I was building it that you're gonna see coming up. And I hope you try it. I hope you like it, and if you try it, make sure you tag us so we can see what you created. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. There's always tons of content being added. Take care, guys.